Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Today's episode is going to be titled, People Come, People Go. One of the hardest things I've ever had to accept is that people come and people go. It's a truth that, no matter how much I try to resist, remains undeniable. When you truly care about someone, their departure can be painful, and it's difficult to come to terms with the fact that one day they may no longer be part of your life. I used to obsess over why people left. I would replay conversations, dissect moments, and come up with reasons, some logical, some irrational, to explain their absence. It's human nature to seek answers when something hurts, but dwelling on it for too long only leads to frustration. If there's anything I've learned from experience, it's that sometimes people just leave. And often, it has nothing to do with how you treated them or how much you cared about them. You can be the most loving, considerate person and still have people walk away. It doesn't always matter how much effort you put in, how many times you remind them that they mean something to you, or how sincerely you ask them to stay. For a long time, I was the type of person who would plead for people to remain in my life. I would list all the reasons they should stay, hoping to convince them that leaving was a mistake. But the truth is simple. People come and people go. Life moves in cycles, and relationships are no exception. Some people will leave and never return, while others will re-enter unpredictably. At the same time, new connections will form, bringing different experiences, perspectives, and emotions. Just as people die every day, new lives begin. There is balance in everything, including the relationships we form and lose. I used to hate that idea, the notion that people disappearing could somehow be part of life's natural rhythm. But over time, I realized that this balance is necessary. Sometimes things fall apart so better things can come together. And that applies to relationships too. When someone we care about leaves, we have a choice. We can either dwell on their departure, mourning what's lost, or we can embrace new opportunities to connect with others who genuinely want to be in our lives. I think about it like walking into a store, Walmart, Costco, anywhere. People enter and exit constantly. Some stay longer, some leave quickly, and some return unpredictably. Relationships work the same way. Some people will vanish completely, while others will drift in and out, unsure of where they belong. It reminds me of someone walking into Walmart, stepping outside 2 minutes later, then walking back in again only to leave once more. If they do this repeatedly, anyone watching would wonder what they're doing. Relationships can be just as confusing. Why do some people hesitate, disappear, then return? Why do they struggle with consistency? This concept was especially hard for me to accept because I struggled with letting go. I always knew new people would enter my life, but realizing that others would leave felt unbearable. A few years ago, I experienced this in a way that truly changed me. Someone I cared about disappeared from my life, and at first, I couldn't accept it. I kept reaching out, trying to hold on to what remained, but over time the communication became brief and sporadic. Things started breaking down in 2019, and it never truly recovered. For a long time, I clung to the hope that things would go back to the way they were. But eventually, I had to face the reality. That person was gone forever. The relationship wasn't going to be repaired, and I needed to let go. Accepting this was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Even though they weren't in my life for very long, they mattered deeply. Time becomes distorted when someone impacts you. 6 months can feel like 5 years when their presence is significant. It reminds me of being at a party, lost in conversation with someone who truly gets you. Time vanishes, hours fly by, and before you realize it, the night is over. When they leave, it feels like something is missing. That's how it felt when that person left my life. I still think about them, as well as others who have left. It's natural to wonder what could have been, why things fell apart, or if I could have done something differently. But at the same time, I refuse to be the person who begs anyone to stay anymore. If I have to plead for someone's presence, then they aren't truly there because they want to be. They're there out of guilt, obligation, or uncertainty. And that's not how a friendship or relationship should work. I've grown a lot since then. I've learned that progress isn't always linear, and some days are harder than others. Occasionally, I fall into old patterns, missing people who have moved on, feeling tempted to reach out again, wondering if things could have changed. But overall, I think I've done well in accepting that people will come and go. Even now, it still hurts when someone I connect with disappears suddenly. A while ago, I was talking to someone I really liked, and out of nowhere, they left. It was disappointing, even upsetting. I could have reached out, begged them to reconsider, asked them to give me another chance at connection. But at what cost? Sometimes, reaching out is worthwhile. Misunderstandings happen, people change their minds, circumstances shift. There are times when reconnecting leads to something meaningful, whether in friendship or love. I've talked about this before. The idea that there's nothing to lose in reaching out. Either the person is receptive or they aren't. But not every situation warrants pursuit. Sometimes, no matter how much we want someone to return, they won't. And in those moments, it's best to accept reality rather than forcing something that isn't meant to be. For every person who leaves, someone new arrives. I've had people in my life who made me laugh, who brightened my days, who truly understood me. Some have stayed, some have gone. But through all of it, I've realized that balance matters. Recently, someone really special left my life. A person who brought joy, made me smile, and lived in the same country as me. That was important because my last girlfriend lived in Brazil. This special person wasn't a romantic partner, but their presence was meaningful nonetheless. Their departure hurt, but I know now that life is about balance. People leave, people come. It's a cycle, an ongoing battle between holding on and letting go. But as painful as it can be, I've come to realize that acceptance is the key to peace. Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode of the Moors October Rants. Signing out, have a good one, guys. Goodbye for now.